Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be trying to build a simple list with the GPUI UI framework. Um, yeah, so let's get started. So what I've done is I've just created a bare bones GPUI list project, and then I've added the GPUI dependency. So if you go to gpui.rs, there's a get started link, and you can grab the dependency from there. Yeah, and so one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm just going to steal this setup window code. So thanks for Matthias for a bunch of inspiration and how to here. And really, this is just going to allow me to like scaffold the app, with some width and height that makes sense. Uh, yeah, so check out the GitHub repo in the comments after this. After the video for all that info. So we're going to use GPUI. We're going to grab everything. A couple things we should do really quick is just set up width and height. So I'm just going to do 400 by 600. So it's going to be taller than it is wider because it's going to be like a list and we're going to append stuff into it. Um, okay, and so now what we can do is I'm basically going to go ahead to the hello world example and just kind of steal the hello world because it's always a good idea to get things running with the basic stuff. And so instead of window options default, we can just create this and pass it in. Okay, and let's run this. Okay, and here we have, that simple window. And then one quick change I'm going to make super fast is I'm just going to set this background to something else, like, and rerun this. Okay, there we go. And so nice gray window, and it's the right size. So basically we're going to have a button here. We're going to have this be a list, and we're going to append things into the list as just, and then we can scroll, and that's basically going to be it. Cool. So yeah, I mean, I think instead of hello world, we can just call this main, and it's going to basically be like a main view. And there's a couple things we want to do really quick. So what we can do is set up this like list item. Yeah, and it can have some sort of like title, and then maybe like a subtitle. And then we're going to also derive an into element, and it's going to basically tell us like we need this render once method. So we can just do render once. Okay, Copilot did a bunch of things we actually don't really want. And then this is going to be impl into element. Yeah, okay, so window context. Window context. Cool. And so, yeah, list item, let's just think about this a little bit. So we could probably have it be flex, I forgot the dot, and then maybe like flex column. Is that what we want? And then some sort of background. Okay, 0x. Cool. And then, okay, so the super cool thing that you can do here is you can do like a hover. And this takes a function, right? And so this is actually pretty cool because this is just a style refinement. And so you can like set the properties that you want when you're on a hover. And so maybe let's do like, right. And so let's also do rounded, I keep forgetting the dot, rounded medium. Let's do some justification, or yeah, some padding, a margin, and then what else can we do? Item center, sorry, item start. Yeah, because we'll have the title and subtitle be basically left aligned. And then the last thing we're going to do here is just a clone on our shared strings. Cool. And so the nice thing about this like render once is we could basically pass a new one of these list items just basically like directly into one of these child properties. So it makes it pretty flexible. Thing I'm going to do is create a like new function, and these are not going to be string. They're going to be strings. Okay, and so it's just a quick utility to make a new one of these. A state struct really quick. Right. Struct state. Okay, and so this is going to have a couple things. It's going to have a account and a list of items. And then inside of our main, we can also make this clonable. Right. We don't need into element on this because it's our state. And now what we can do is put a state model here. So this is going to be a GPUI model. And so if you look at the docs, it's basically a strong well-type reference to a struct which is managed by GPUI. And that's great because we can then basically like subscribe to this model and like get updates and do all that kind of stuff. And so that's really what we care about. One of the things, so we have a render for main, and we can grab the state model off of here. I'm just going to get rid of this line super fast. And what we need to do is create like a new method. And so this is not going to be a self, but rather a view. And we're going to pass in our window context. Right, so we can do that. We can create a new view. Okay. And I think, yep, view context. Okay, cool. Okay, and so we create a new view, we create a model, and then we basically return like ourself inside this view, and so that way this new function creates that. And so instead of having this, we can then basically put main new here, and we can pass in this context. Oh, right, we do not need the new view because that's inside of our main new. Okay, so it just cleans it up a little bit. Basically, the idea here is we're going to have some sort of like observe listener, and it's going to listen to certain events. Well, it's going to listen to the state model, and basically, when an item is updated in here, we can then basically like trigger or notify inside of this view. And so, yeah. So we can observe. We can just borrow this, and then we can do an on notify. So there were a couple things in here, I believe. At the end of this observe, we're going to do a detach. Right. And so this takes 2 arguments. Observe, 3 arguments. Okay, and so this is this, which is mutable main, and I believe believe this is our model, and this is our context. Yeah, so the model, the context. I think it's read. Okay, so we have basically everything set up for the most part. We just don't have a way to actually like get this list state rendered and handled by the framework, right? Um, and so we're actually going to create that list state. And so if you look at this list state struct, you can basically create a new list in GPUI. So this is like the Tailwind style, passing in something that has sort of like a list state. And the list state's going to need a few things that we're going to get into right now. So if we look at the list state new function, it expects 4 arguments. And so since we're just initializing stuff, we don't really care about too much here. I believe there's list state bottom. And then we're going to have some sort of like function here. And this function is going to take things 2 arguments. And we're just going to return an empty div. And we're going to say into any element. Okay, so the list state.new, yeah, the element count, the orientation, the overdraw, and then a render item function. And so the render item function is basically just going to take, it just creates like, it just has to return in any element. And then we could just pass this default list state in here. Okay, and so what we're going to do inside of our observe is we're going to read the updates to the items, and we're going to create a new list state here and set it to our model, and then notify events, and then basically it'll trigger GPUI to re-render, if that makes sense. So if it doesn't make sense right now, stick with it. Stick with me. It will make sense soon. Okay. It's going to be items.length. Everything stays the same. This is going to be an index, and this is going to be a context. We don't really care about it right now. But what we can do here is an item, right, oh, and then I think we just need a into any element here. Okay, and so basically we grab our items and we clone them, and then we can grab our item from this, right, the list item, and we can just pass that list item directly into the child. And basically anything in that render once is going to be rendered out here. And that should be it. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on creating a simple button. And so, yeah, in the interest of time, I'm just going to copy an existing button. Okay, and so basically we have a div, flex, some padding, a background, it's rounded, we have a hover, text color is just white, it's going to be large text, cursor style is going to be the pointing hand, and it's just going to say like add item. Yeah, and then we're going to change the full size div, and so instead of this, we're going to replace it with this. So not too much to change here. Size is full, flex column, and then here's one thing we'll go over, and then basically we have a list, and then at the bottom we're going to basically say we're just adding our button and we're centering it and giving it some padding, and we're giving the parent view a full width, and so it's just going to be a button at the bottom centered. But this is the magic, and so this list kind of I alluded to it before, it takes this list state. And so we could basically just pass our list state in here. And the last thing I'm doing is I'm just giving the list the ability to be widthful and heightful inside of this main over here. And so we should be able to run this and just see what it pops up. And so yeah, the list is here, and we've done some centering and some padding, but we have our add item button, which doesn't do anything because we need to add a on mouse down handler, click and do all that stuff. So that's what we will do right now. So on mouse. Yeah, I'm actually going to get rid of this because it's just very distracting. So what we're going to do is, yeah, it's just very distracting to have that. So we're going to have some sort of like mouse down event and then some sort of global context, right? And this is going to be a mouse button left. All right. So yeah, a mouse down on what kind of mouse button? We have the mouse down event, and then here we have a window context. And so this is super nice because we can say update model, right? And we have a reference to our model right here already. And so I'm just going to borrow that, and then we could just flush out the callback here. So I think there's a couple arguments here. And so this is the state, and this is the context. So model CX. Right. So I think we can say new item. Okay, and so what we're doing is we're just creating a new item with the count, and we're going to add that to our existing items array. We're going to increment the count, and then the last thing we want to do is just notify any listeners about this. And what is it complaining about? Oh, so I'm going to add the move back in. Let me see what else. I think that should be it. Cool. So there we are. We have our list items being rendered in our list. So that's pretty awesome. All right. So really quick, one more time, just to go over it. We have state, and it has account, and we're just using that to assign the title with the count, right? We could actually probably use the items.length plus one. Yeah, that might. There's pros and cons. We're not removing items yet or anything like that. So, but anyway, we have the count and the items, and then we have the list state. And so this list state is the magic, right? And so our main, we have our button code. The button code basically just performs an update on our model and appends a new item into our array, calls a notify for any observers to listen. It also renders our list with our list state. And so the list state, we initialize it to like not display anything, but we perform an observe and detach it. So it kind of like observes in the background, maybe is a good way to think about it. The observe state listens for updates on the items, it clones them, and then creates a new list state depending on that, where we pass it the length of the items, and we can basically just flush out this render function, this render item. I think it's called render item. Yeah, render item function. And so this is the function that defines it. And so anything we do in here is like what will be displayed, right? We're grabbing a list item from our vector, and we're placing it in this child. And so, yeah, it's basically rendering this render once function, and that's how we get that item. So yeah, all in all, I think not too difficult, just a couple things to wrap our heads around, but there it is. All right, so thanks for sticking with me and kind of trudging through some of this stuff. So I'm still new to it and still learning, but appreciate it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.